Good morning, everyone. This is the Wednesday, March 15th housing hearing in room 312. It's a 9 o'clock notice hearing, and so we have a full agenda today. So we do have a 2-minute time limit per testifier, so we have a lot to get through. We ask you to stay possibly within the 2 minutes. We will allow for a little bit of deviation since I think we're okay on time today, but if not, if we look like we're getting out of hand, we will enforce the time limit. So we're going to start off with SB 330. This is relating to the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation, relating to some right of first refusal. So I'm going to have the Vice Chair call off the testifiers. So Vice Chair for the testifiers.
Department of Hawaiian Homelands.
Aloha, Lehua Kinilau Kano with the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. We stand on our written comments available for questions. Aloha.
DLNR.
We'll stand on our written comments and a few of those questions. Thank you.
Calvert Young, University of Hawaii. Louis Salaveria, BNF.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Louis Oliver from Budget and Finance. We will stand on our submitted testimony providing comments.
Thank you. Office of Hawaiian Affairs. Oh, shucks. Sorry. What do we have left? Nani Maderos, Office of the Governor. Denise Matsubara, HHFDC.
Good morning, Chair. Denise Matsubara, HSG. We stand on our testimony support.
Individual testifying in support, Ellen Carson. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this matter?
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. We submitted a testimony and we stand on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Hakeem.
All right. Thank you. Members, any questions on this bill? SB 330. All right, seeing none, we're going to go to SB 763. This is relating to affordable housing. This bill temporarily exempts affordable housing projects from specific fees from the county and state. Vice Chair?
BIA Hawaii in support. Nani Maderos again in support. Nope. Denise Matsubara, HWC.
Good morning, Denise Matsubara, standing on our written testimony support. Thank you.
Okay.
Regina Patterson. Nope. In opposition. Anyone else wishing to testify on this matter? Seeing none, Chair.
All right, members, any questions? Okay, SB 763. All right, seeing none, moving on. SB 866 relating to housing. This one is a general excise tax exemption after meeting certain criteria. Vice Chair.
Nani Maderos again in support. Nope. Denise Matsubara in support. Am I on the right page? Yeah, I am. Oh, can I do this first?
To you.
Okay.
Morning, Chair. Denise Matsubara for HHFDC. I wanted to come up here because this has been a long-standing initiative to try and broaden the GET to apply to higher rental projects. It's been a collaborative effort between the unions, the banks. This fix is very necessary to pursue that higher rental projects to make it feasible to build. So we really support this. And we ask the committee for its support as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gary Suganuma, Department of Taxation with comments.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, my name is Kathy Davenport. I'm here on behalf of the Department of Taxation. Department, thank you for submitting our testimony, and we're here to provide comments. Here for any questions.
Thank you. Tom Yamachika, Tax Foundation of Hawaii with comments.
Aloha, Chair, members of the committee. This is Jade McMillan for the Tax Foundation of Hawaii on behalf of Tommy Amachika. Today we'll be standing on our comments submitted on the measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Maui Chamber of Commerce in support. Ernie Lau, Board of Water Supply in opposition.
Chair, Vice Chair, member of the committee, my name is Kathy Mitchell with the Board of Water Supply. We oppose the language on page 2, line 16, whereby a project for which 201H36 prevailing wages have been deemed the prevailing wages may receive a waiver of water development fees, which we call water system facility charge. We're a semi-autonomous agency of the city. We do not receive revenue from the city. We're self-sustaining. And this would be a burden on our water ratepayers. As we indicate in our testimony on page 2, the water facility system charges, it pays for the increasing capacity of our backbone of the water system to pump, treat, and transport, transferring the cost of providing the water system capacity from the development or project. It transfers the cost and is a burden to our existing BWS water rate customers. So we're just opposed to the language on page 2, line 16, the water development fees. We have a waiver. The BWS board did establish a waiver for affordable housing. And so we have a process in place, and if developers need to have a waiver, then they can go through the process. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify on this matter? Seeing no, Chair.
Members, any questions?
Chair?
Rep. Onishi.
Yeah, for the, let's see, the housing, Denise?
Denise, come on up, Denise.
Good morning, Rep.
Hi. You talked about how this would help with higher rental projects. Do you have a number on how much this would save a developer?
I don't have a number offhand, but it would really depend on the project. My understanding is through Act 54 back in, I think, 2016, and then amended again in Act 39 in 2018-19 or so. This law was passed so that projects at the higher income levels, 80% to 140%, could be built. So far, Act 39, to my knowledge, and I don't know if DOTAX is here, but we haven't used it. No one has used it because they're not able to stack the exemptions in a fashion that can really make projects at the higher income levels feasible to build. The rent coming in isn't sustainable enough for construction, for it to support construction. So, I don't know if anybody else in the room can give an actual example. It's going to depend on projects, but you're going to need to fill that gap between what the rentals can bring in and what it costs to build. And this is the stacking that is necessary at this income level, because you're not getting the big subsidy from low-income housing tax credits or rental housing revolving funds. Those take up, a good half of the project, and you're not getting it on these. So that's why there's this need for the stacking of all these different exemptions to help make it feasible.
But you don't know how much it contributes to the reduction of the price of the project.
Not without a specific project, in mind.
So how do we know it's going to be effective?
Well, based on, I guess, different numbers that developers have run, and I don't know if there's anyone else in the room that can provide a better example. I see PRP here. They might be able to give you some more information, but without project specific, I couldn't tell you offhand. I just know that without the subsidies of LIHTC or rental housing revolving funds, you're going to need something else to help make these projects pencil.
Okay, so you guys have developed projects for less, for low-income rental.
60% AMI and below, they're eligible for low-income housing tax credits and for rental housing revolving
Okay,
funds.
so do we have the same, similar provision
For,
of the
for GET?
exemption for these taxes?
For GET, at these levels, you cannot use rental housing, you can't use LIHTC.
No.
Yeah.
All I'm asking is, do you guys have numbers of those projects
The
developed?
low-income rentals?
How much savings
Mhm.
this provision provides to that project?
So we have numbers for low-income housing tax credit projects.
I'm not talking about the tax credits, I'm talking about these, yeah.
So these projects have never materialized.
No. I'm asking, do you guys have numbers for the waiver of real property taxes, permitting fees, water and sewer development fees, and other developments from a
Oh,
county?
I'm sorry. Thank you for the question. No, I wouldn't. That would come from the counties.
So, but you're supporting this not knowing how it would contribute to whether or not these projects would make it feasible or not?
I'm supporting it because based on the feedback we get from developers, they're going to need a stacking of these types of waivers to help.
Yeah, but if
make it
it's only
feasible.
2% of the costs,
Mhm.
I mean, does it make sense? And plus, the county's not here to testify. This is all income to the counties,
Yes.
right? I'm very surprised the county's not here saying, hey, wait a minute, you know, you're giving away our property tax, you're giving away our development fees, permitting fees. Are they okay with this?
You know, I haven't heard otherwise, but when this initiative was first formed by Dick Gushman back in, I want to say 2016, 2017, there was broad support for this throughout, I know, the banking industry, the development industry, and the unions. You know, I have to imagine that they went around to the counties to socialize this as well. So,
I understand, right? I understand the broad support. Everybody's saying, yeah, we gotta do housing. We gotta do all levels of rental income, of personal income and providing rentals. But this now specifically gives away their income. I mean, Department of Water Supply was here, right, testifying that they are against this because they need the money to develop more water resources.
correct. Well, I cannot speak for the county. You bring up a really good question, but here is what the counties would get out of it. The counties don't all have a generous gap financing program. So this, in turn, would help them to generate housing units because they need the units.
Well,
Right.
the counties are also generating housing, right? So if they felt giving away all this money would help them develop more housing, they would do it themselves, right? Instead of the state mandating it.
So,
I can answer the question about the county really quick, just to help out a little bit.
Come on up, yep.
Okay, thank you. Chris
Go ahead.
Delaney with Pacific Resource Partnership. So in 2018, the counties passed Ordinance 18-1. And Ordinance 18-1 actually lists out all the waivers. And it references 21H36A5, which is this. So they already came to agreement, the council, the mayor, on what waivers they're going to give up. So that's already set in stone on Honolulu County. They're the only county that's done it. So anyway, if you pass the bill and what that amendment does with the waivers is basically we're trying to release or remove the language financial, I think it was indirect or direct financing, government financing. When you remove that, then it's going to allow Honolulu to give the developer those waivers and they can stack. But I guess indirect finance was interpreted as meaning waivers. So it prevents these projects when they go through HHFDC, they cannot utilize what's already there in Ordinance 18-1 because it says that you cannot have any indirect financing, and waivers are considered indirect financing. So if you remove that language, you'll just open that door. And there's been a lot of developers interested, but because of this, they were unable to utilize it. And this was Act 54 in 2017. This legislature passed
So
that
you're
bill.
saying the county cannot fix this issue?
They cannot, it's the state, and that's why this bill is before you right now. Is because certain things have to be removed to allow the county to give those waivers to the developer. So it's there already.
Well, I don't see anything in this bill except the giving. I don't see where something's been removed.
So I don't have the bill in front of me because I wasn't going to testify on this, but
Yeah.
there is a part that says direct and no governmental indirect financing. There's language in there. I don't know what page that is. Maybe Denise can help me out to identify the page number. Sorry. Yeah, sorry I wasn't prepared to testify on this bill, but I thought I would jump in to help out. So, where's the waiver part? Oh, wait, no, that's government. Oh, it actually doesn't. Project with 200. 36A. Wait, actually, do you guys see it in there?
Paragraph 3 says qualified person or permits received no
It might be under the wage and hour.
Yeah, it might be under the wage and hour, sorry.
104.
Yeah, the 104. So there's two parts to this. There's 201 36A5, and there's a 104, yeah, the 104 provision, sorry. But in the next bill, Senate Bill 1352, this is actually in there too, doing something similar. So when you read that bill on 1352, I think it is page 9 in 1352, you can see the other part of the legislation. Section 3, page 9 on Bill 1352. It should have it there. Yeah. And so that's a section. So they're connected. It's a little confusing because you're amending Chapter 104. This Act 54 amended Chapter 104 and then 201H 36A. So you got to kind of connect the two. And then the third dot you got to connect is that there's an ordinance 18-1 on the county level that gives references this Act 54 to give these automatic waivers that they've agreed on. So it could actually produce, I think, a lot of good opportunities for developers to build affordable housing.
Okay, so
Yeah.
my question to you then is, do you know how much it would save?
You have to do it per project, but I can't give the exact numbers, but developers have penciled it out and said this could work. I mean, they all came to the table to create Act 54. There was affordable housing developers, there was banks, there was architects, there was unions, there was nonprofit. There was a whole bunch of people back in 2018 that came and developed this bill in order to pencil it out. And everyone was to kind of give a little and to try to figure out a way to
Thanks.
solve this.
Okay,
issue.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, members, any other
All right.
questions? 866. All right, seeing none, let's move on. SB 1352. This was originally a Gov's package bill, but had a transformation in the Senate. So now it is relating to labor standards through zoning and prevailing wages and some other provisions. So Vice Chair for the testimony.
Gary Suganuma, DOTAX, with comments.
Okay. Sorry, hi. Board Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Kathy Davenport again from Public Hearing. We stand on our provided comments if any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Department of the Attorney General with comments.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Deputy Attorney General Linda Chow. We've submitted comments on this bill regarding the amendments made to the purpose in Senate Draft 2. We believe there may be a germaneness issue under the League of Women Voters case. We recommend if this bill is to go forward that it goes back for 2 more readings in the Senate. Thank you very much.
Jen Kagiwara, Hawaii County Council. No? Okay. Tom Yamachika, Tax Foundation of Hawaii with comments.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Jane McMillan on behalf of the Tax Foundation. We will stand on our written comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Operating Engineers Local 3 in support. PRP in support.
We stand on a written testimony support. Thank you.
Thank you. BIA Hawaii with comments. Nani Maderos, Office of the Governor in support. Hawaii State AFL-CIO in support. Maui Chamber of Commerce with comments. Any others wishing to testify on this matter? Seeing none, Chair.
Members, any questions? Like SB 1352.
Yeah, Chair.
Rep. Onishi, go ahead.
Let's see. I guess Department of Tax, well, we don't have Department of Labor here, right?
We do not.
Yeah, Department of Taxation. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I have a question in regards to the Section 3 in the bill, about requiring, it says, including but not limited to off-site construction where a portion of the building or work is manufactured or constructed for the performance of the contract.
Okay.
So this off-site construction of parts of the building, would you interpret that to be only in Hawaii? Or are we requiring this, any part in a building that's used has to be manufactured or constructed using prevailing wages?
I can't 100% answer this, but the thing is that when we do give these exemptions, they have to get certified from the
Yeah, but you still need to interpret that, right? When it says off-site construction, if it qualifies. I mean, they can say, well, this part, right, was manufactured, we used it,
Yes.
right,
Okay, I
in the
understand.
building.
I will have to get back to you because I will have to talk to other people about this and that the actual wording. Does that mean off-site, meaning off-state, out-of-state versus in-state? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean-
So I'll get back to you on that one. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Members, any other questions? SB 1352. Seeing none, let's move on to SB 1596. This is relating to school campuses. This is a School Facilities Authority pilot program for West and South Maui. Vice Chair for the testimony.
Hakeem, HPHA.
Morning, Chair, my chair, members of the committee, we stand in support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Keone Ferris, School Facilities Authority.
Yeah, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, we stand in support of the comment.
Thank you. HSTA.
Nancy Higa standing for Osa Tui Jr., President of HSTA. We stand in support of our testimony.
Thank you. Alice Lee, individual in support. Any others wishing to testify on this matter?
Members, any questions? SB 1596. All right, seeing none, let's move on. SB 1206, this is relating to deposits of public funds. This authorized the Director of Finance to exempt a depository from the requirement to pay all deposits of public funds upon demand and some other different things. Vice Chair for the testimony.
Iris Ikeda, DCCA.
We will start on our testimony, providing comments, and defer to the Department of Budget and Finance.
Thank you. Oh, Budget and Finance with comments.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair. I thought I'd just explain our testimony just for a little bit. We do understand and we do appreciate what the bill is trying to accomplish, which is to incentivize the affordable housing. The concerns that we do have, and again, given the specific authority that the Director of Finance has, we do have the ability to look at depositories that will continue to, support that particular part. But just the provisions that allow for the exemption from 38(2) -F which is the ability for the state to demand its deposits back. If that can be removed from the language, then we would have no problem with the bill. Thank you, Chair.
Anyone else wishing to testify on this matter?
Okay, members, any questions? SB 1206. Seeing none, let's move on. SB 1040 relating to homelessness. This is requires the Department of Homelands to establish a rent with option to purchase pilot program on the leeward coast of Oahu. Vice Chair for testimony.
DHHL with comments.
I'll stand on our written comments.
Thank you. Opportunity Youth Action Hawaii in support. Hawaii Emergency Management Agency with comments. Oh, I thought you said sorry. Okay. Hawaii State Council on Mental Health in support. Should I call out their names? There are about 5 names, individuals with comments or in support. Any of those individuals here? Any other persons wishing to testify on this matter? SB 1040. Chair seeing none.
All right, members, any questions? SB 1040. Questions for testifiers. Seeing none, we'll move on. SB 393 relating to the landlord-tenant code. This is a extends the notice period from 5 business days to 15 calendar days and requires some mediation within a certain period of time. Vice Chair for the testimony.
Lindsay Garcia, Hawaii Realtors.
Chair?
Hi,
This is me,
Miyoko.
Hoko Ito. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm here on behalf of Lindsay Garcia, Hawaii Association Realtors. We just submitted comments regarding this measure. The main one being that in order to implement this, because of the needed changes to standard forms, we're just asking for a November 1st implementation date, November 1st, 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. Patricia Hunt, individual with comments. Any others wishing to testify on this bill? SB 393.
Hello?
Hello.
Can
Hi.
Hi.
Miss
I've
Hunt,
never
we
done
can't
this
hear
before,
you.
so
Oh,
I don't even
go
know
ahead.
how to.
Go ahead, we can hear you now.
Oh, no, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. First and foremost, I'm not a politician, and I thank each and every one of you guys for working during this pandemic and helping so many people who need the help right now. Some of us very much since I submitted some questions. I don't expect the answers today. I've worked as a property manager and also a private estate manager for the Hilton Estate in Honolulu. And
Miss Hunt, can you turn off your video and we can maybe possibly hear you just through audio? You're going in and out. Okay. Well, I think we lost her, so we will note her. Oh.
Jen,
Okay, well, we're going to move on. Ms. Hunt, I think we have your testimony,
the
comments, and we will note your comments into the record from your written testimony. So,
Anyone else wishing to testify on this matter? SB 393. Seeing none, Chair.
all right, members, any questions?
Jen,
Okay, she's still trying. Maybe you can mute her. Okay. Seeing none, let's move on. SB 764 relating to housing. This allows the bank to invest in aggregate up to 2% of the bank's total assets in limited partnerships, limited liability partnerships, and so forth. Vice Chair for the testimony.
Nadine Ando, DCCA with comments.
Hi, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I'm Nadine Ondo. I'm here on behalf of the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. We stand on our written testimony offering comments on the bill.
Thank you. Catherine Kemp, CPB, in support.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair. Laurie Lam on behalf of Central Pacific Bank. Sorry, Kathy wasn't able to make it this morning. And with me this morning is Glenn Shing, the Chief Legal Officer for Central Pacific Bank. CPB is in strong support of this bill, as it will enable us to do more to support affordable housing projects in the state. CPB is approaching the current limit of 10% of a bank's capital and surplus, so we need this bill versus banks that have a larger LIHTC investment limit due to their size and capital. As a bank founded by those intent on serving the underserved, CPB would like to be able to do more to support affordable housing development, and we ask for your favorable consideration in passing this measure. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Sterling Higa, Housing Hawaii's Future, in support.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and congratulations to Representative Ebslin. Glad to see you in the big square building. Sterling Higa on behalf of Housing Hawaii's Future, testifying in support. We stand by our written testimony. Just want to point out for the record that capital is one of the limiting factors for affordable housing construction. This measure increases the available supply of capital and therefore increases the amount of affordable and workforce housing that can be built. We stand in strong support. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Hawaii Chamber of Commerce, in support. Naya, in support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Evan Hoy on behalf of NAHP Hawaii. We stand in strong support of this measure, as stated previously. This will help out with generating capital for LIHTC projects and more affordable units overall. Based on that, we stand in strong support. Available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. HPM Building Supply, in support. EAH Housing, in support. Ahe Group LLC, in support. Catholic Charities Hawaii, in support. Hunt Development Group, in support.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Myung-oh here on behalf of Hunt Development Group. We're in strong support of this measure. We believe that we support any and all actions that will increase the availability of LIHTC credits and for Hawaii banks to invest in Hawaii and support affordable housing development. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Holomua Collaborative, in support.
Chair, Vice Chair, Josh Wish for Hulu Collaborative. We stand on our testimony in support of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Title Guarantee, in support. Roman Catholic Church, in support. Maui Chamber of Commerce, in support. Avalon Group, in support. Mihoko, in opposition.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Mihoko Ito on behalf of the Hawaii Bankers Association. We did submit testimony in opposition to the measure, not because we don't support affordable housing, but really our comments were focused on the 2% of assets limit, which we were concerned was a little too high. So in our testimony, we suggested 15% of capital and assets. And I did just want to note for the committee that we are open to other compromises and are happy to discuss this further. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hawaii Credit Union League with comments? Anyone else wishing to testify on this matter? SB 764? Seeing none, sure.
Members, any questions? SB 764. All right. I do have a question for DCCA. Maybe DCCA can come on up. Thanks for being here. So I think the Bankers Association said they were okay with increasing it from 10 to 15. If we go from 10 to 15, are you okay without commissioner approval, or do you think commissioner approval is needed at the 15% rate?
I think as a compromise, we would be willing to consider the 15% without requiring the waiver approval of the commissioner. So I think within our testimony, we did indicate that there is this wild card provision that does allow for that, 15% of capital in surplus with the OCC approval. So we would be willing to, as a compromise, to allow banks to invest more into affordable housing, low-income affordable housing, to have this type of increase. But we did, although our comments were very clear that we felt it's important to note that the 2% of total assets that's provided for under the FDIC scheme is not one that would be without requirements for an application for review and applicable regulatory requirements that would have to be met. And also, it also provides for formation of a subsidiary or an LLC to be the investment entity, not the bank.
Okay.
So those kinds of things we felt were important to point out in terms of what was proposed in the bill.
Is DCCA opposed to timelines if there is a waiver process, is DCCA opposed to a timeline of making sure that waiver process is done in a certain period of time?
You know, I do believe that we would oppose sort of a arbitrary set of a timeline because I think it always depends on the circumstances, depends on who is seeking to have that waiver and the application and the circumstances involved. I think the problem with imposing something like a particular number of days within something has to be acted upon doesn't take into consideration all the factors that might come up at the time the application is made. And we would oppose the idea of a timeline. Obviously, we will attempt to do whatever we can to act on things reasonably, but I think putting in a particular number of days for action on something would be ill-advised.
What is a reasonable time frame you think to that a bank should expect to get a response?
You know, I have Iris Ikeda is here, our commissioner, who might be able to have a little bit more background to explain what she believes would be the appropriate amount of time. But I think we would have some concern about having a number, you know, a specific, depending, because that's an all size fits all kind of.
Right.
Something to put in the statute that would be difficult, depending on, we can't always forecast what the particular circumstances may be.
Okay.
Hi, yes. So Iris Ikeda, the Commissioner for the Division of Financial Institutions. So the timeline, I think that, you know, like Director Ando said, would be a little bit problematic. You know, we go through a full review of looking at the, you know, the request from any particular bank, what their business model is, what their financial condition is like, what else they have, you know, in the pipeline that they are planning to do, not just for loans, but for the entire bank profile. If they're changing anything, you know, what else is going on in the economy as it might affect, you know, their particular proposal. So, you know, and it takes some going back and forth. I mean, it's not just they submit something and then we look at it. We do, you know, call or write to the bank who's asking for that for additional information, and that, you know, generally takes a little while, you know, depending on how complicated the proposal is.
So is it true that you do not take waivers for 2 months out of the year?
No.
So you take waivers every single month throughout the year?
So I'm not sure what you mean about waivers, but we take requests all
so
year
the wild
long.
Card, the wild card waiver,
Yes.
or whatever it's called. You want to use a technical term.
Mhm.
And so what is your time frame of you getting that back to people? Your response. What is your average time in getting back to the banks if they came in for a waiver or a wild card or whatever you want to call it?
So for the wild card, that is a little bit different because we also work with the FDIC and FRB, Federal Reserve Bank, in San Francisco to kind of discuss whether or not they would, you know, the request is reasonable to them also. And so, you know, that does take a little bit of time working with the federal agencies. But typically, you know, depending on how many questions go back and forth, it could take anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks to, you know, as long as it takes to get all of our questions answered.
Okay, so functionally it's 3 weeks?
Not
4 weeks?
necessarily. You know, as I said, it depends what questions are being asked.
So when you ask the questions, is it to go over to a certain percentage, or is it every time they want to go over from 10 to 15 at this current point? Every time they want to add incremental amounts, do they have to go back for a waiver, or are you giving them all the way up to the 15%?
So right now, our limit is 10%.
Right. So if you want to go for the wild card.
Right. So it depends on whatever their business model is, what they have planned for the future, you know, what the economy, you know, what our state economy is like, what the national economy is like. So we take all of those factors into consideration as we review any request.
So how long?
It depends. It really depends on.
So you can't get certainty then? Because I think part of the problem is when you're doing LIHTC loans, you need to know, right? If you're going to compete in LIHTC loans, time is kind of money. So if you're not going to give a time frame of when these people can loan this money out, don't you think that's problematic?
Well, the other thing is that, as you said, these LIHTC loans take a while to negotiate, even with the developers. It doesn't happen overnight. Typically, our banks will ask ahead of time when they're thinking about investing in any of these LIHTC or with the developers. If they anticipate that they might go over the limit, they come before, you know, they start or early on in the negotiation. And so by the time they get to a point where they're ready to say, okay, we're ready to lend you the money, the approvals are done also.
Okay. All right, members, any other questions? All right, Vice Chair.
I don't know for either of you. So I am concerned that there's been a lot of news recently about Silicon Valley Bank. Does this open the door to banks making riskier loans, or them not being as stable as they could be? Have we not approved this? And then does this open the state's liability to essentially be, you know, permitting banks to do this kind of activity?
So one of the things that we look at as we're doing our review is safety and soundness, right? And safety and soundness is really for consumer protection. And really what that means is to protect the consumer deposits. In Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, you know, both the FDIC, Federal Reserve, and Treasury actually did a kind of an unprecedented move to use, you know, a very little used exception in the law, calling those two bank failures as systemic to increase the depositor insurance to, or actually it didn't increase the depositor insurance. It insured all of the depositors in those two banks.
Right,
because they were
the only
systemic.
reason why they needed to be insured was because the banks were making risky.
Right.
They were
Right.
buying treasuries, and the yields went way down on those treasuries. So,
Right.
do we risk the same thing?
Mhm.
And I don't know if the federal government's going to step in for our banks, but is the possibility that by doing these loans, we open the door to something like that?
So that is one of the things, as I said, you know, we look at the safety and soundness. One of the factors is concentration. And so we're looking at how much money or funds or equity is put into a particular bucket, as they say. So if, you know, when we're looking at 20 or 2% of bank assets, for, you know, a lot of our banks, that's over 25% of their capital and surplus. And so, you know, that's a lot. We would probably not let any of our banks do that, just because if the economy turns, or if the bank had an emergency, or, you know, if the state had an emergency, it would not be able to shore up. And we would have to step in to take immediate action.
Wait, so I'm confused at your testimony. You're saying that 2% is too much now, or?
2% of assets, yes. Which is what the bill is asking, proposing.
Okay.
So what the Bankers Association, as a compromise, suggested 15% of capital and surplus, which is a different number.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Chair.
All right, members, any other questions? All right, Seeing none, let's move on. We're going to move on to SB 924 relating to taxation. This eliminates the home mortgage interest deduction for second homes under Hawaii income tax law. Vice Chair for the testimony.
Gary Sugunuma, DOTAX.
Kathy Davenport for the Department of Taxation. We stand under testimony and providing comments, and I'm here for.
Thank you. Louis Salaveria, BNF.
Chair, Vice Chair Lewis will stand our testimony providing comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Yamachika, Tax Foundation of Hawaii, with comments.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Jay McMillan for the Tax Foundation. We will stand on our comments submitted on the measure. Thank you.
Lindsay Garcia, Hawaii Realtors, in opposition.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Mihoko Ito on behalf of the Hawaii Association of Realtors. We will also stand on our testimony in opposition to this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Ellen Carson, individual in support. Will Karin, individual in support. Natalie Iwasa, individual in opposition. Any others wishing to testify on this matter? HB or SB 924.
Members, any questions?
I go on very brief.
Rep. Todd, go ahead.
Hi, for the Department of Taxation. I was wondering if you have kind of like a general estimate for the fiscal impact of eliminating this deduction.
Right now, we have about, so for the fiscal year 2024, we do have about 11.7 million for the special fund. I do have older revenue impact, so I can give it to them.
Okay, that would be helpful.
Okay.
And then there was some testimony provided that I guess suggested that because this would affect a state income tax deduction, this would largely not apply to non-residents in this class, since they typically would not pay much.
Yeah, but they still have any tax liability they can use against it, yeah.
So this would largely apply to residents though, for the most part? Okay, thank you.
All right, members, any other questions? All right, seeing none, let's move on to SB 1462 relating to limited profit housing associations. Vice Chair for the testimony.
Gary Sugunuma, Department of Taxation.
Okay, Kathy Davenport for the Department of Taxation.
Yep.
Again, we stand on our written testimony, providing comments and information.
Thank you. Chris Sariatsu, DBED. Will Karen, individual in support. Any others wishing to testify on this bill? SB 1462. Seeing none, Chair.
Members, any questions? SB 1462. All right, seeing none, let's move on. SB 729 relating to board members. This is a big one with relating to board training.
Go. Okay. Louis Salaveria, BNF.
Chair, we will stand on our written testimony providing comments.
Okay. Jane Sugimura, Hawaii Council of Association of Apartment Owners, in support.
Good morning, Chair Hashimoto and Vice Chair Ayu and members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to testify. Hawaii Council supports this bill, but we have some suggested changes. We suggest that sections 1 through 5 of SD1 be stricken because House Bill 1509, House Draft 2, has crossed over, and it's scheduled, it's been referred to the CPN committee, and that deals with DCCA oversight over condos, co-ops, and the planned unit developments. And so we think that it's more appropriate for that bill to deal with this issue. So we ask that these sections be stricken. And also, we ask that you exclude condos with less than 50 units, 50 units or less, from this requirement, or make it voluntary for them, because the management and issues relating to small condos are different from the larger condos. And we provided you with numbers from the DCCA as to the number of condos. And you can see there's about, if you deduct the small condos, there's about 1,000 condominiums, 9 board members. That's 9,000 board members that have to be educated. And so we suggest that you not do classes, that people have an option of attending classes or, seeing a video and get certified. And what we ask that you consider, and another thing is, if you make all 9,000 of these people go to classes, it's likely that they're going to not want to volunteer to be directors. And so we ask that they be allowed the option of either going to classes or looking at a video, because we already have classes. CAI and Hawaii Council does board training at least twice a year, and the DCCA does the Condorama. And so we can do about 1,000 people a year in classes, but that still leaves a whole lot of people that need to get the training. Also, we ask that the Real Estate Commission be allowed to use the Condo Ed Fund to implement this process, and we ask that the effective date be moved back to allow the Real Estate Commission to hold public hearings, develop the curriculum, create the videos for the online training for certification. And Lorraine McGuire of CAI was going to testify today. She submitted written testimony. She agrees with Hawaii Council's recommendations for the modification of this bill. She could not attend the hearing this morning, asked me to give her apologies to the committee, but she did submit written testimony. Thank you very much for allowing me to testify. Thank you.
Should I still call her? Should I just go to the beginning? Real Estate Commission in opposition.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members, Keating Kleinhans on behalf of the Real Estate Commission. We sent out a written testimony in opposition requesting a sunrise analysis of the proposed registration education requirements. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Eudor Harris in opposition. Steve Glanstein, Hawaii State Association of Parliamentarians in opposition. Should I just? Yeah. All more?
No, just.
Okay. Yeah, there's a bunch of others that submitted testimony on this. And any of those individuals on Zoom or here wishing to testify?
Oh, yes.
Hello.
Good morning, Chair Hashimoto, Vice Chair Michael Ayu. My name's Dale Head. I'm in favor of this bill. I don't want it eviscerated or destroyed by the lobbyists from these predatory management companies. They're unregulated, never investigated. And I was in a condo for 35 years, on board for over 10. We find all kinds of problems. Go to DCCA, they say, go hire a lawyer, go to court. No. As far as training, it should be, the state should hire somebody to do this at a community college, put it online. These companies, they monetize this stuff, okay? They don't want board members to know what they're doing, and oftentimes people are appointed to the board. It's unfair because the owners are deprived of being able to vote for them. They play all kinds of proxy games. And the Real Estate Commissioner Pang 4 years ago recommended that a Senate Continuing Resolution 63 be amended to look at the problem of proxies versus ballots. So as I sold my condo due to unstoppable corruption, it has to stop, but the legislature is more than happy to listen to the same stuff from the lobbyists, and I'm tired of it. And I sold my place, but I'm still interested in these bills because they need some pushback, which they're not getting from legislators, okay? That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Lila Maurer on Zoom.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I'm Lila Moore of Hui Oiaio, here to supplement my written testimony. For years, the Hui advocated to require board education, which is essential to the theory of self-governance of homeowners associations. The significant increase in fees recently reported at a condo association just a few blocks from the Capitol is not a solitary incident. Many of Hawaii's people live frugally to save their down payments, meet strict financing guidelines to purchase expensive homes, and study disclosures before purchasing. Then after purchasing, they attend board meetings to keep informed. They should not be traumatized by the sudden disclosure of financial inadequacies of their associations. Better governance and better management are required, and leadership comes with responsibility. Complacency, ignorance, and a lack of knowledge under the weak excuse of volunteerism has led to many financially distressed associations in Hawaii. While legislators cannot cure complacency, willful blindness, and scofflaws, legislators can discourage civic illiteracy and protect more homeowners by passing this measure. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Greg Misaikin, individual in support.
Aloha. I'm just pulling up my comments. Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Greg Misaikin, and I support SB 79 SD1. I stand by my written testimony, and I would like to read just one portion. My personal experience at my association has confirmed what every legislator should know. There are many unqualified directors on the board, and this is negatively impacting my association. This is repeated across associations throughout Hawaii, and I've heard this from many concerned condominium owners that I've spoken with. The result is abuse of power and malfeasance, and the solution begins with SB 729 SD1, followed by an ombudsman's office to oversee condominiums and HOAs. I ask you all to please support SB 729 SD1 today, and HB 178 and HB 1501 in the 2024 legislative session. Both are ombudsman measures that will provide the consumer protections needed for all condominium owners throughout Hawaii. And I do want to make one additional comment based on testimony that was previously provided. This measure should apply to all condominium associations. It shouldn't be limited to, less than 50 unit owners, because it's very unfair. I think that's actually discriminatory in a sense that you're going to not regulate quite a few associations that have less than 50 owners. There's many examples of malfeasance and issues throughout, the blend of associations, whether it's large buildings or small buildings. So I think it's important to have a fair and equitable measure that's got some enforcement behind it also. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals wishing to testify on this matter? SB 729. Chair seeing none.
All right, members, any questions on this measure? All right, seeing none, we're going to recess for decision making. All right, members, calling back our 9 o'clock hearing for decision making. Let's see here. So first up, SB 330. I appreciate all of the testimony on this. I think we have to continue working on this because if this is going to work, we can't have everyone exempt from it. So everyone's been asking to be exempt from the right of first refusal, and that just defeats the whole purpose. So I think we will have to go back and work with Senator Chang on figuring out how we can make this work. So we're going to defer SB 330. All right, SB 763 relating to affordable housing. This relates to temporarily exempts housing fees from specific state and county fees, and except for HHFDC fees. So we'll keep this alive for discussion. We're going to defect the effective date to June 30th, 3000, and allow staff to make technical and non-substantive revisions. Members, questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members, voting on SB 763 SD2, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Eslin?
Aye.
Representative Kila is excused. Representative Kitagawa?
Aye.
Representative Martin?
Aye.
Representative Onishi?
Aye.
Representative Todd?
Aye.
Representative Matsumoto?
Aye.
Chair, your measure is adopted.
All right, members, moving on to SB 866 relating to housing. So bear with me a little bit because we're going to do some switching a little bit and moving around some things. So essentially SB 1352, the AG essentially said that it's not germane and it needs additional reading. So what we're going to do is, I think in the opinion of the chair, SB 866 is actually a little bit of a better vehicle because it does talk about some exemptions of the counties, and so we're going to move all the substantive provisions of SB 1352 and add it into this bill, which is SB 866. And when we're inserting Part 12 of Section 2, we're going to ensure that it meets the housing title. So we're going to amend that Section 12 to delete the word construction, and we're going to make sure it says housing. So it's going to be promoting better labor standards, including but not limited to living wages, benefits, requirements for participation in state-approved apprenticeship programs that promote the efficient and expeditious completion of housing instead of construction projects, and permit and encourage the orderly development of land resources within the county's jurisdiction. And then in Section 5 of 1352 that we're going to insert here, which is Part 5A, we're going to delete the words, the use of tax cost shall apply to contracting only, and delete that all out. So it's just going to say the allowable general excise tax shall not exceed, we're going to keep the blank amount per year in aggregate for all projects approved and certified by the corporation. So the rest of the 1352 will generally be inserted very the same into 866. We're going to defect the effective date to June 30th, 3000, and allow staff to make technical and non-substantive revisions to reflect the intent of what we're trying to accomplish here. Members, any questions, comments, or concerns? Rep. Onishi.
Chair, in SB 866, so I do have some concerns about the lack of, it seems to be an Oahu-centric bill in which we're applying it to all counties without the counties having opined on this issue. I think there are, at least on Hawaii Island, some big issues with us, I guess, waiving property taxes and other county fees, that the counties should be the persons that are deciding on whether or not to do this or not. So with that issue and the fact that in 1352, this issue about the manufactured parts for a construction project and not knowing how prevailing wages apply to those pieces, whether, I mean, if you require it only in Hawaii, then developers might be buying all these parts from the mainland in order to get it cheaper. So I think that issue needs to be settled. And so therefore, with those issues, I'm voting with reservations on this bill for now.
Point well taken, Rep. Onishi, and I agree with you. The counties should opine on this, and hopefully they will be aware that this is moving. So, members, any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members, voting on SB 866 SD1, Noticing the presence of all members with the exception of Representative Kilo, who will be excused for the remainder of this agenda, and noting Representative Onishi's with reservations. Are there any other members choosing to vote with reservations? Any members choosing to vote no? Chair, your measure is adopted.
All right, moving on to SB 1352. This is also relating to housing. Again, as I said before, this is a gov package bill. So it had all this parts to it that we just moved into 866. So essentially, we're going to delete all the current contents of SB 1352 SD2, but we're actually going to add back in the contents of SB 1352 SD1, which is, if you look at the SD1, it's specifically sections 5 through 8 and sections 14 through 16. So this will relate to the original gov package proposal that relates to historic review from 50 years to 100 years and to allow for SHPT to do third-party review. So this committee did not hear, we actually took it out in our version because there was other vehicles moving, but we want a vehicle for this specific issue, so we're going to add that back in. I think SHPT, there's a lot of issues that we need to work out with them, so I think this is one of them that we want to keep in play for conference. We're going to defect the effective date to June 30, 3000 and allow staff to make technical and non-substantive revisions. Again, this is back to the SD1 primarily. Members, questions, comments, concerns?
Chair,
Rep. Onishi.
just for clarification, so
Yeah.
the SD1 does not deal with prevailing wages?
It's all, we only took the SHPT provisions.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members voting on SB 1352 SD2, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Are there any members choosing to vote with reservations? Any members choosing to vote no? Chair, your measure is adopted.
All right, moving on to SB 1596 relating to school campuses. We're going to actually take the amendments suggested by the School Facilities Agency. So we're going to remove any reference to on-campus housing and to allow for flexibility to where the housing is going to be located. We're going to require that it can be located on campus or off campus. But if it's off campus, we will put in a provision that it's at least within a 2-mile radius. We also will add in the recommendation that the housing shall be available to teachers, staff, and administrators within the complex area, not just the specific high schools. We're going to add into the committee report that to get started to do the planning and design should be approximately $200,000, which is the same amount that we added to the first committee report when we first heard this. We'll defect the effective date to June 30th, 3000 and allow staff to make technical and non-substantive revisions. Members, any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members voting on SB 1596 SD1, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Are there any members choosing to vote with reservations? Choosing to vote no? Chair, your measure is adopted.
All right, moving on to SB 1206 relating to deposits of public funds. We're going to actually delete the proposed language additions that are underlined on page 2 and 3. And we're going to actually add in on page 2, line 11. It already says that the director shall consider the beneficial effects of the state of using depositories within the states. And then from there, we're going to add, including but not limited to the lending of funds at favorable terms to enable the creation of a housing exclusively for Hawaii residents who would be owner occupants, meet the definition of affordable housing in 201H 57B, and who own no other real property. So we're taking out the provisions that BNF did not like, and we're kind of making it more of like a recommendation that would be kind of nice to have. And we're going to defect the effective date to June 30th, 3000 and allow staff to make technical and non-substantive revisions. Members, any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members voting on SB 1206 SD2, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Are there any members choosing to vote no with reservations? Chair, your measure is adopted.
All right, moving on to SB 1040 relating to homelessness. I just passed out a proposed draft that takes the DHHL comments, and we're going to convert this from a rent with option to purchase pilot program. We're going to convert it to a supportive housing pilot program that also includes a financial literacy. So generally speaking, in the draft that we passed out, we just deleted anything that references rent with option to purchase, and we just added in a Native Hawaiian supportive housing program. And so I think the thought about this is that although I get the intent of what the introducer was trying to do, because when you do the rent with the option to purchase, you're then going to get them off the waiting list. But I think the focus was on homelessness. And I think when you're at that homelessness level, you're really just looking for a place to live. And so I think we just got to focus on that first before you start looking at trying to get a place to buy. So we do know that that's the ultimate intent, so that's why we're adding in the financial literacy program. And we hope that we can also get the funding at the future time, because we do know permanent supportive housing is very, very important in this area, and it's very hard to develop. Just note that it does have a defective date of June 30th, 3000, and will allow staff to make technical and non-substantive revisions, because I just did this myself, so I'm not sure if it's all correct. They have to go clean it up. All right, members, any questions, comments, concerns? All right, seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members voting on SB 1040 SD2, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Are there any members choosing to vote no with reservations? Seeing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
All right, moving on to SB 393 relating to the Landlord-Tenant Code. We are going to actually take the contents of HB 1439 HD2, which is HB 1439 is actually the bill that this committee passed out and made all the corrections that we wanted and got it to a place that I think we like. We sent it over to the Senate. That's still moving, but this is just in case, because this is a priority of the chair. But we want to move this along. We're just going to make sure that all those contents are in this bill. So we're going to replace the whole bill to make sure it reflects that contents of 1439. But we are going to make one further amendment in Section 4E to make clear that those who receive rental relief must meet the income criteria of being 80% of the area median income or below. So I think that was a question to make sure, folks wanted to make sure that those receiving rental relief weren't rich people, which, you know, I think that a good point is taken. I think we wanted to make sure that anyone can take part in the mediation aspect, because we did learn from Act 57 that when you limit the mediation aspect, it makes it very, very difficult. But mediation plays a very important role. So we wanted to make sure that everyone had access to that. So we're not going to touch that. We're just going to do it for the rental relief. We're going to allow staff to make technical and non-substantive revisions, and we're just going to make sure the date is defective to June 30th, 3000 if it's not already. Members, questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Members voting on SB 393 SD1, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Are there any members choosing to vote no with reservations? Chair, your measure is adopted.
All right, SB 764 related to affordable housing. We are going to, I appreciate the comments from DCCA and also all of the bankers. I think this is a very, very important topic, which you kind of saw through the amount of testimony that we received. Low-income housing tax credits, making sure that we have a robust pipeline for housing is extremely important to, I think, this entire committee. And so I think when we take a look at some of the testimony, I think what we want to do is we're going to amend the bill to go from 10% of capital and surplus limit to 15%. And so when we moved it to the 15% capital and surplus, we're going to take out the prior approval from the commissioner. So we're just going to allow banks to go up to 15%. But we're also going to add in a provision that banks can go up to 20% of capital assets with the approval from the commissioner within 20 business days. They have to approve it within 20 business days or it automatically gets approved. So this will help with the flow of LIHTC projects. I know there was some hardship from DCCA, but I think when in speaking with a lot of the industry folks, it is a problem of processing applications. So note that is noted through this amendment. We're going to defect the date to June 30th, 3000 and allow staff to make technical and non-substantive revisions. Members, any questions, comments, or concerns? All right, seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members voting on SB 764 SD1, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Are there any members choosing to vote no with reservations? Chair, your measure is adopted.
All right, moving on to SB 924 relating to taxation. I do appreciate the testimony, but we're going to keep this moving. And we're going to defect the effective date to June 30th, 3000 and allow staff to make technical and non-substantive revisions. Members, any questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Members voting on SB 924 SD2, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Are there any members choosing to vote no with reservations? Chair, your measure is adopted.
All right, moving on to SB 1462 relating to limited profit housing associations. So I think I read through this bill and I get where the introducer is coming from of what he's trying to accomplish, but I think this is a really complex topic that I think we need to study a little bit more and to get a better handle of how it's going to interact. So I'm going to turn this into a working group to study the feasibility and applicability of limited profit housing associations, including if it will help with the long-term affordability of housing. And it will also they will also be tasked to determine the best way to set up the limited profit housing association statute. So this statute already is an attempt, but I'm not sure if it's the correct way. I think we all want to see what, if all the partners involved can make this work. So we will kind of follow most of the parts of Section 1 to set that working group up, and we'll keep it within DBED for administrative purposes. And then there are some members, so we'll take the membership in Part 1 and we're going to add that to the working group. So all those members that you see in the bill, we're going to keep that. I think what we wanted to do was we wanted to make clear for the counties who's going to appoint those people. So I think essentially we're just going to delete the representatives from housing agencies, and we're just going to say it's the mayor's representative for all the counties, or the person designated by the mayor. So at least we are clear who gets to appoint that person. And then I think the rest are pretty much the same in terms of who will serve from that Part 1 of the bill. We're going to defect the effective date to June 30th, 3000, and allow staff to make technical and non-substantive revisions. So, working group. Members, any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members voting on SB 1462 SD2, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Are there any members choosing to vote no? With reservations, Chair, measures adopted.
All right, last bill, SB 729, relating to board members. I know there was a lot of testimony on this. I think there is a lot of interest in this bill. We did hear a very similar version of this bill, before. So I think in trying to figure out a compromise, we're going to just limit this to condos. I think we specifically passed out HB 1509, which created a task force with the cooperative housing corporations and the planned community associations, and I think that needs to happen. I don't know what the Senate is doing with that bill, but we're firm in our position that we want that to be looked at. So we're going to take that out of this bill, and we're just going to apply it to condos. So essentially we're going to delete Section 1, so that's or delete sections 1 through 4, and that's pages 1 through 23 of the bill. And we are going to then keep the provision that the Real Estate Commission will help to create the curriculum, and we're going to add in that it must include online options, including video training. And so hopefully they can figure that out and they can help with the curriculum. And we will also leave in that the Condo Ed Fund can help pay for this training. We're going to take the recommended amendments to exclude condos with 50 units or less from the mandatory board training certification and education requirements, and we're going to make it a voluntary training for them. I think that point is well taken. We often do tier some of these things, and I think there is a hardship for smaller condos, and so I think they are, we can take a look and see how this goes and see if we can remove that at a later time, but I think that's a good position to start with. We're going to defect the effective date to June 30th, 3000. However, we're going to tier the implementation of the current Section 7, which is the training requirements, and we're going to make sure that we start that a year after whatever the implementation date, so that ZCC has time to educate the condominiums of this change. We're going to allow staff to make technical and non-substantive revisions. Members, any questions, comments, or concerns? Hopefully this is a good compromise bill. All right, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members voting on SB 729 SD1, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Are there any members choosing to vote no? With reservations, Chair, your measures adopted.
All right, members, that's it for now. I think we are planning on having another hearing on Friday for the doubles. We will also likely hear a joint next week as well with water land. And we also have to have one with education. And we also will do rezos. So with that, our meeting is adjourned.